Let's just say you have this favorite book. You love this book so much that you want to take it with you every single day, but then it's too big to fit in your bag. So what if you take this book and you miniaturize it so that you could fit it in your pocket? Today we're going to do that. Your first step, take your book, scan it. Scan what pages you want and put them somewhere. In my case, I put them on my iPad. I wanted to keep this computer free, so I scanned this book, just certain pages, and I put it into my iPad. A little disclaimer, I've already contacted Allison Hoffman. I talked to her already about my desire to take one of her books, AmiguruMe, as one of my favorite books ever, and how I wanted to miniaturize it, and she loved the idea. I wanted to use a real book for this particular project, and so I decided this is the book I wanted to use. The focus of this video is just for me to teach you how to make a miniaturized book, and that's about it. I am not doing this video so that you can go and make miniaturized books and sell it to people and make money on it. Don't be a jerk. This is just a video to teach you how to make a miniaturized book for fun. This is not for you to use it to make money. Don't be coming back to me and being like, well, Martian Creations taught me how to make a miniaturized book, so I guess it's okay for me to sell it. No, it is not okay for you to sell it. Okay, have a good day. That's just my little disclaimer. Not going to give you a lesson on how to scan it because everybody has a different printer, and my printer actually has an app that you can use as a scanner. Once you scan all your pages in, you're going to open up Photoshop. This is a paid program. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty robust, and it's definitely worth the money. I think it's about $10, so it's definitely worth the money. It is a very strong, pretty good app for you to use for this project. So now you're just going to open up, just do a regular project. You're not going to hit this. You're just going to hit create a new project. In my case, I already have a project going, so I'm just going to open up the document I already have. And I'm going to show you how I created this little tiny image here and how I made sure that this little tiny image can actually turn into an actual book and be the right size. Your first step to doing that is in the description box below. I'm going to put a link to iPad Calligraphy's YouTube video when she was introducing her PNG rulers that you can put into anything, Procreate, Photoshop. It's a PNG, so it's a transparent background, and it's a free download, and this is going to be very helpful for you to create this particular project. So I already took the opportunity to download those real quick. Let me show you how they work. So I downloaded it, I added it into this document, and so it basically is a ruler, and I like to put the ruler at the top, across the top, and across the sides. They are in inches, and she also has them in centimeters and inches, so you could choose however you want to measure your little book. And I use these rulers in order for me to differentiate how I want to make my cover. So we are going to recreate this cover that I just made here. So in order to do that is I went into this little thing that looks like a little picture. Looks like a little picture here. And so clicking on that, it gives you a choice of either you can use your photos, you can use files, you can use any libraries that you have added onto your iPad, or you can just take a picture of whatever you want. So if you didn't scan anything, you can always take a picture of it and then try to crop it in order for you to get it the right size. So those are all other choices that you can do other than scanning. In my case, I scanned it, and when you scan it into an iPad, it's going to be a file. So I added this file into here. So I did the front cover and then I did the back cover. So I'm going to add my front cover. And so it automatically, when it goes into Photoshop, it automatically has these anchors on it, and you can just make it into a smaller size. So I'm going to move it into I'm just going to make it into a smaller size, set it aside. I'm going to hit done. Now I'm going to add my back cover, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the anchors to make it into a smaller file. Okay. And so to recreate this little cover, I actually use my my cover template but you guys are starting from scratch. Just like with any program like this, Photoshop or Procreate, they like to use the layer system, which I love the layer system. So what I'm going to do is I am going to highlight my front cover. So I have that highlighted. I'm going to use the move tool because I want to go and get it up near and underneath my rulers here. I have it near my rulers here. So I'm just going to put it up to the corner just so I can measure it and make sure that it's the right measurement. So each piece, I wanted this piece to be a little bit below 2 inches. So I'm going to get my anchors on to this file here, and I'm just going to be moving it around. So I want it going across, I want it to be about a little bit lower than 2 inches. So I'm just going to do that. Going across, I want it to be a little bit below 2 inches, and then going up and down, I want it to be a little bit above 2 inches. So it would be like 2 1/4 or something. So that's where it is right now. So we're doing good. So I'm going to move this aside. And now I am going to grab my back cover layer, hit the anchors. I'm going to move it up here. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I want it to be just, and you want to stick to this corner edge right here because it keeps the aspect of it pretty intact. So I want to have it just below 2 inches. And then I want it to be going up and down. I want it to be just above 2 inches. So 2 1/4. So something close to that. In the end, when the book is flat open, it's going to be 4 inches across or 4 1/4 across, because you're adding 2 and 2, because this is 2 inches across and this is 2 inches across, somewhere around there in the ballpark. So now at this point, now that you got your measurements in mind, you just want to make sure that the two covers are even. So I'm going to move my covers out to about right here. Let me get my front cover. And so you're going to want to look at it, move it around, make it smaller, make it wider, however you need to. Just move them around, just, you know, comparing them. So for the most part, this is exactly how I want it to look, okay? And it's basically, and I'm also going to use my front cover that I already created and just like look at it and be like, okay, that's good, that's good. That's where we want it. Okay, should I move this one out of the way? Okay, so now if you'd notice, these two are two separate files. And if you want to move them around and get them in a place where you want them to be, it's going to start to look, it's going to start to get a little hard moving each file separately. So what I'm going to do is, looking over here where my files are and my layers are, I want to make sure that both of my files or both of my layers are above or below each other. And then take the layer that is above, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go down to here. There's these 3 dots. You're going to click those. And then you're going to select merge down. And what that does is it combines these 2 layers together so that now they are one layer. Now that I have my one layer, I am going to take away my rulers because we don't need those anymore, okay? Now we have our one layer of our cover. Now, another thing that you need to keep in mind, this may look weird. You may be like, why would you put the back cover here and put the front cover here? Because once this prints out on a piece of paper and you grab that piece of paper and you fold it in half, you fold this image in half, this is going to be on the front. This is going to be on the back. And that's exactly how you want it. It may look weird, but just remember that concept, that everything is a little bit wonky, a little bit backwards when you're trying to, especially if you're trying to do the cover part. Now, what you also will notice, you have this little void area in between the 2 covers, and basically when you print that out, it's going to be white. But see, I want to be a little bit extra because you know how I am. I be getting extra and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom this in a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my little tools that I have on the side here. I'm going to pick my brush tool right here. Okay. So I don't think it's really important. I'm not going to focus on how big I want my brush, how small I want my brush. It doesn't really matter. What I do want is to click this eyedropper tool. The eyedropper tool, it appears about right. It appears like in the middle. So you want to move that around and you're just going to pick up a color that you want. You might want to take red. You might want to take this color. But in my case, I want to take this color. And so that will translate into the brush and the color will appear here. And so I'm going to use my pen since I'm on my iPad, and I'm just going to fill this area in, because when I print it out, once I fill that area in, I print it out, this is going to be blue. It's not going to be white. It's going to print out whatever is there. So I'm just going to fill this in. Not going to go crazy with it, but I'm just trying to fill in that area. This book, once you print it out, is going to be so small, you're not going to be able to see any mistakes or anything. All right, so now we have our spine is filled in and it's the same color as the front of the book, so we're doing good. Now, another thing that you want to keep in mind when you are working with making and printing out a cover for your book, you are going to make sure that you are not taking your cover. Make sure that you're not taking your cover and putting it right at the top here, because what that's going to do is there's going to be no edge at all. You want to put it out at least about right here so that you have a nice edge around it of white paper. Later, that's going to come in handy for you. I'm going to take this layer that I don't need and I'm going to click the eyeball on it so that it will go away, and because I don't need it anymore. Okay, so now I have my white space around the edge of my cover, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to print this out. So if you go along the top here, there is this square with the arrow pointing out on it. Whenever I see this symbol, I think action. There's something going to happen. Like if I click this, either it's going to export it somewhere or something's going to happen. So when you click on it, it does give you options of actions. So either you can publish this and export it, or you can do a quick export. In this case, I'm just going to do a quick export, because a quick export is you're just exporting out a photo. So it's, no big deal. So in the quick export, you do have all these options. And so in our case, we're going to hit print. So I'm going to print this out, and then we are next going to work on our pages that go inside our book. That's why we put that one there and we put this one there, so that now we know that when we fold it, this is going to be the front cover and this is going to be the back cover. So now we are going to work on our pages. So now I'm going to go back out of here. So now I am going to open up my pages, my inside pages template. And so once I have this open, I know this is the size that I want it. And the size of this is, and this is how we can tell, we put our rulers back up. And so I have my move tool. And so I know that these are going to be about 3 inches, which is going to be a little bit shorter than the cover. So the cover is going to be, I believe the cover is like all the way out here to about like, 3.5 or so. That's where my cover is. So I know that my cover is going to be larger than the pages, which is just like any other book. So I have my page out here. So I'm going to take away my rulers. Now here's the part where, this is the fun part. This is the part where you go and you're like, okay, let me go and start putting my pages in there. So that's what I'm going to do real quick. So I'm going to take them and I'm going to line all the pages up. And so I'm going to use the template that I have already that I know is a good template, and I'm just going to use the move tool and using the transform tool in order to get the pages just right. And then once I get them just right, I'm going to move it out of the way. All right, so now I have my one page here. So basically what I'm going to do from this point is I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the cover. So I'm going to take these and they're next to each other on or above each other. So I'm going to take the top one and I'm going to click the three dots and then I'm going to merge them down. So now they are one piece. Now they're merged together. So I'm going to stick that up to the top here. Now this little guy is going to be my template for all the rest of the pages, and I don't need this one anymore. So I'm going to make that invisible. And so now I'm just going to put these pages in order how I want them to be, but I want to make sure that I have space on this side and space on this side. And then I want to not be wasting paper so that when I cut them, I'm just cutting them out. Boom, boom, boom. So now again, I'm going to repeat that process where I'm going to put in one page, put in another page, make sure they fit on this template here, and then merge them down. All right, so once you get done, these should be lined up on the bottom and straight. If they're not, just go through each separate file and make sure that they're all straight, because if they're not straight on the paper, then you know that they're not going to be straight once you cut them out and put them in a book. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use that symbol that seems like something's going to happen. So I'm going to use that symbol and I'm going to do a quick export out, and then I'm going to print it. Hope for the best. All right, so we have all our pages all printed out. All right. So remember, we want to have white space on just the sides for all the pages that go inside the book. But then for the cover, we want all white space all the way around. So let's do that. So here's our cover. We have the white space all the way around. Okay, so we're going to set that aside. We're going to cut all these pages so that there's just white space on the sides. Where the binding is, instead of folding it like this, we're going to fold it like this. Hear me out. Let me do it and then I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so I have all my pages all folded. And so what this is going to do, this is going to help me to be able to tell what pages need to be cut on this end. So I'm just going to rearrange these real quick. I'm just moving them around and making sure they're straight. I'm not going to go too crazy with it because then I'll be here all day. So once I have these all situated in such a way so that all the folded edges are facing outward and making sure they're all straight or somewhat straight. There we go. I like that. So once I get it straight, I'm going to take a clip and just clip it together. Okay. Then I am going to be focused on cutting these edges because I want these edges to be flat. What I'm trying to do is cut these straight. So these are another pair of Fisker scissors. These scissors I used to use in the garden, but these are tough. I think these can cut a finger off. But I'm going to use these to go through all these layers of paper. And I'm going to try to keep it as straight as possible. See how easy that one was? These scissors don't play. They don't cut straight, but you know, they cut somewhat straight. So once I cut that, we have a nice little template, nice little thing to work with here. You're just trying to make sure you get a little bit of white between your pages like this. We want to make sure we have a little bit of white between your pages to work with because we're going to sew all these together. So from here, I'm going to get myself a little bit of a more solid background here. I'm going to get my X-Acto mat. So I'm going to set aside some thread. This is just embroidery thread, nothing crazy. And then I have just a regular needle, like as small as I can get them, but long as I can get it. So I'm going to set those aside. So now at this point, we're going to make our little holes and try to make them as even as possible. Now that we have all our pages together. So I like to go first and just mark out by using an awl I can never say this. AWL, okay? AWL. Use your AWL. And then what you're going to do is you're going to, first I'm going to take and I'm going to poke out some holes where the holes are going to start. I'm not going to try to poke the holes all the way through, all the way through, all the way down. I want to just give myself a little template and be like, that's where I want to sew it. So I'm just doing these really quick little pokes in this surface page. Okay, so now that I have these little pokes that I put in my surface page here, now I'm going to take this and hold it in my hand. Now here's the part where, please don't poke yourself in the finger because it will get ugly and it's not gonna be fun. Even though this may sound really dangerous, but trust me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start poking through this hole, twisting as I go, not putting too much pressure on it, but at a certain point I'm just twisting, 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 and I can start to feel the awl trying to poke through this last page. Twisting, twisting, so I could feel it. It's right here. So then at this point I move my finger away and I'm going to continue twisting until it pokes through. Just like this. Okay, so I'm going to do that all the way down. So we have all our holes now. So now we're going to sew these pages together. Now there is nothing magical about this. I am just going to take a good bit of string. I'm going to take my needle, then I'm going to thread it. And so to do this, this is just a technique that I used for my books in the past. Okay, so I'm just going to use this technique that I used in the past. Basically, I'm just going to push my needle through. I'm going to grab a pair of pliers because it might be hard to pull this through. So I have it going through the first hole. So now I'm going to go over to the second hole. Now, what I also like to do, just make sure that your string is not all bunched up before you start pulling it through the hole. So I pulled it through. Now I'm going to try to keep, I got a nice little inch of a string here. So from here you have your end and you have your string that you were just pulling through. We're going to tie that into a knot. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, because all this stuff is going to get glued down. Okay. And then from here, I've already have a little string over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the string over to the other side. Even though it's coming out this end, I'm going to pull it over to the other side. And then I'm going to just sew under this little loop I created when I went to the second hole. So I'm just looping it through that loop just to hold it in place. Okay. So I'm just holding it, just basically holding it in place. Then we're going to go over to the second hole. We're going to push that through, going through onto the other side. Okay. And before you pull this through with your pliers all coming in all hot and fast and stuff, make sure this is not bunched up, because it can snap your string and you don't want that to happen. Then you have to start over again. Okay. And don't pull fast, just pull it really slow. Okay, so now we came through on the bottom. Now we're just going to put the string over to the top, take our needle, go through the loop we just made, pull that through. Then we're going to go through 1, 2, 3. We're going to go through the 4th hole here. Sometimes it might not feel like all of the holes are lined up, and that's okay. Your needle will find where it needs to go. There you go. Before you pull it through, make sure you're not bunched up. Okay. And then you're going to pull it through slow. And you're going to pull it through slow. And then you're going to go underneath the little loop you made. Okay, now you're going to go into the 5th hole. Push it through. Make sure you're not bunched up. Use your pliers, pull it through. String over. Go underneath your loop. Go into the 6th hole. Go into the 7th hole. Now go into your final 8th hole, or in my case, I have the 8th hole. I'm going in my final hole. Okay. Check to see if you're not bunched up. Okay. Now to finish it off, I'm going to wrap it around again and go underneath that loop there. Underneath that loop there. And then I'm going to create a little knot. So I'm just going to do a series of little knots just to make sure that this is very secure. Okay. Then I'm going to cut it. All right. So you got your little book. Take your clip off, and there you go. So this is my book, and this is how it's looking so far. It's so tiny. Okay, so now we can set this aside. So we got our little string. So I like to leave about, you know, just a little bit of string, nothing crazy, because this is all going to be glued down. So now we're going to set this aside. Now we are going to grab our cover. So this is a pretty flimsy cover. You don't want this as a flimsy cover. You want to make this a little tougher than the average cover. So what we're going to do is, I like to look at this real quick. So we have all this white space around here. So what I like to do is, on each one of the corners, I'm going to go and cut a little slit. Okay, so I'm going to do that on all 4 corners. So I did a little slit on all 4 of the corners, okay? So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my cutter. You may be thinking, what? Why are you grabbing your cutter? Here's why. This is an embossing tool, that I got from Cricut that I love. I use it not just for Cricut stuff. According to this little thing right here, that lets you know you can put it in a machine, but you can get an embossing tool anywhere. So this is just the Cricut embossing tool that I have. They designed it so that you can use it as your own little embossing tool in other situations. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my cutter. We're not going to use the blade this time. So I'm just using my cutter to see. Okay. To see how straight I want to do this. So I'm going to use my embossing tool. I'm going to open this up. And the design of this cutter is that it has a little recessed area. This is like, if you look at it, I don't know if I'm going to zoom in on it real quick. You can see it right here. There's a little recessed area, and that's what we need. So I am going to use my little line that's inside the little piece of wire that they have inside here just to get this straight. Okay. Now that I have it straight, I'm going to take my embossing tool, which has a little point on it, and I'm going to put it wherever the recessed area is. I can feel it's like right here. So as I'm pushing on that area, I'm pushing down and I'm just pushing it forward and across this. And so this is what it's doing. It's creating a little bend for me so that I can fold this. Okay, so I'm going to do this all around this square. Alrighty, so now I have all my edges have a little embossed edge on it. Now that we have our little embossed edges, you're going to take this square out of here. Okay, so we're going to cut the little triangles out like this. Okay, so we're going to do that around. I'm going to cut out all the little triangles. Alrighty, so now it should look like this. Now I'm going to take those edges and I'm going to start folding them up. Alright, that's one I gotta be careful with. Okay. Nope, it didn't bend the right way. Alrighty. Alright, so now we have a little thing like this. Okay. So at this point, after I bent it up, I'm going to try to eye up where I want to have my binding go. Okay, so okay, so I feel like I'm going to take my little book and I'm just going to eye it up. And I'm like, okay, that looks good. I can see that the little blue binding that I painted in here, that it's perfect, is a perfect size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it back into my little Fiskars cutter. And I'm just going to use that line there, get my embossing tool, and I'm going to go like this. Same thing for the other side. You're creating a little square. You're creating your spine of your book now. Okay. I have that eyed up, and then I'm going to bend that up. Okay. Now I'm going to emboss that. Okay. All right. All right, created. So now I created a little spine. You can see it. And I'm going to bend that. Alrighty. All right. So I created a little spine of the book, okay? So there we go. So now we want to reinforce this and make it seem like it's a nice cover, like it's a legit cover. And this is what I'm going to use. We're going to grab a little piece of cardstock. So I got these. I'll put it in the description box below, the supplies and where I got these. And so what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to put this inside because we want this square to fill in so that this is where the black piece is going to go into. It's going to go right into this recessed area. So we need it to be close to exact, nothing crazy. Okay, so I have it here. And so I am just going to pull this down a smidge so I can see. And I'm going to take my pencil. And so I'm just drawing a little line here. Okay, so I draw a line so I can cut this way. Now I am going to cut another line. So now I'm going to cut another line going this way. So we're looking at about right here. Set that aside, grab my cutter again, and now I'm going to cut this out. I'm just going to cut right here because I don't like to waste paper. So I'm going to eye it up again. Alrighty. So now we got our little square. Hopefully it should fit right in the middle here. Okay. So now we are going to need to glue all this together. And I found the easiest way to do that is with crafter's tape. So it's like crafter's tape or runner tape, they call it. And so I'm just going to run some glue on one side of this black piece of paper here, this black cardstock. Alrighty, nothing crazy. And then I'm going to stick it onto our paper here. Alright, I can deal with that. So now we need to tape or glue down the sides. So I'm folding it just to make sure everything is as tight as possible. Again, I'm going to put some runner's tape on this part, on the white parts. Alright, so now we got the tape on there. We are going to tape that down. Boom. So now we have a very tough reinforced book cover. Now if you turn it inside, you're like, oh, that looks ugly. So now what we're going to do, I'm just going to grab random paper. It doesn't, that part really isn't important to me. I don't know if it's important to you. I just know that this right here is not as pretty as I would like it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil in my hand. And so you don't want to have this cover all the way to the edge and covering it completely. You still want to have a little bit of the white showing through. That just makes it look a little bit more clean. So I am showing it the white on either side here. And so I'm going to make a little mark so that the white is going to show evenly on the other side. Then I'm going to do another white mark, another mark down here so more white can show going this direction. Okay, so I'm going to mark out a little square or a rectangle. Get my cutter again. And I'm going to cut on those marks. All right, where's the other one? Here it is. Okay. This may not seem like this is the right size, but it is. And so it should look like this. All right, so now I'm going to use more runner's tape, and I'm going to place a run of tape going along all 4 sides. Try to get as close to the edge as possible, which I am not doing very well right now. All right. So, don't be so particular. Don't be so particular. You can do this. Okay. All right. So there you go. So now I have a little cover. I feel like I'm going to emboss this part just so it folds a little bit cleaner than if I were to try to do it myself. So I am going to eye up. I'm going to look at the front cover, and I can see the embossing. You might not be able to see it on camera, but I can see the embossing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a mark on this side here. Again, I'm going to eye it up, and I put a mark right here. Okay. These are not marks that you will see later on, but these are not marks that you will see later on, so that's good. And I'm going to look for the recessed part, and then I'm going to use my tool and emboss right in the area where my mark is. Okay. Do the same thing on the other side. And if the marks are bothering you, which they are bothering me, I'm going to erase them really quick. Okay, so now we have our little embossed areas, so we can just fold it now. It's easier to fold. Okay. Takes the guesswork out of it all. So look at that. You have your own little tiny cover. Look at it. It's so cute. So adorable. So now from this point, I'm going to set my little, what you call it, aside. Then I have my filler pages here. And so now we are going to want to glue this into the cover. Okay. So I found this E6000 glue. This is a different type than the regular E6000 that you use for jewelry and just about everything. So I found this E6000 Extreme Tack, and for some reason I like this because it doesn't dry so quickly, and what it does is it's actually giving you a surface when you glue. It's like very raised glue, and it doesn't stain paper. That's what I like about it. Comes out like it's a really thick glue, and I like that because it lets you know what you glued and what you didn't glue. Do need to use 2 hands for this. Okay. All right, so I got a nice little bit in the binding, making sure that my strings are in. There we go. So I'm making sure that my strings are in. So I'm just making sure that they're all laying flat and not going to be sticking out the top. So I'm just dipping the binding in that glue and just moving it around, making sure everything is covered in that area. So I'm just moving it around, trying to assess too if I need more glue. So I'm gonna put a little bit more glue. And I'm trying not to get any glue on the sides of the book cover. Okay, so I'm just moving that around. Okay, so now I'm going to just stick the book in where it's going to lay forever. Okay, pushing it in. And I like this too because this particular glue, because it doesn't leak everywhere. Like, it's not even leaking out the sides. Like, basically it sits where you put it. It may squish a little bit, but it's not going to squish out and drip everywhere. It's not a runny type of glue. So that's why you need two hands in order to work with it. So I'm making sure that my strings are inside the cover. If they're not, take a little needle and push it down into the glue. Let me check the other one, which will be over here. And I'm pushing that down into the glue and into the binder while the glue is still wet. Okay. So now from here, I'm going to take a little clip, and I'm just going to, and I'm making sure that I'm pushing the binder up against this flat part, making sure that the spine is like going to be really flush up against my pages. So now I'm going to let that sit for a bit, get it to dry and get it to set. I set this in the clip overnight, and so this is the result of it. It's all nice and dry. So this is basically what it looks like. And that's the binding that we painted. Looks beautiful. Love it. This is our back cover. And then this is our front cover. And basically, we made a mini book of our favorite book. And I can stick this in my pocket. And this is small enough to fit in my pocket. So you guys, thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure you listen to my little pearls of wisdom. And don't take what I taught you, make mini books and sell them. This is just for fun. This is just because I wanted to commemorate one of my favorite books. This was her first book, I believe. And I wanted to commemorate it because I really appreciated it, because it definitely helped me to make so many awesome dolls. If I didn't have this book, I would not have made any dolls whatsoever. It definitely made it like, this is a real thing. You can make this. This is how you do it. So I highly encourage you to go out and buy this book because it is very helpful. If you want to create your own little dolls, I love the fact that in this book, she has so many different examples of different dolls that you can make, different shapes, different head shapes, different types of hair, as you can see. She has so many different choices in the book that it's like, if she has all these choices, that means I can make anything. So this book definitely helped me with that goal. And I just wanted to commemorate it. As usual, guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. Make sure you're kind to other people. And make sure you made somebody smile today. Hopefully I made someone smile today with this cute little miniature book. And as always, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!